Are we living in La La world, or is it just me? Joe Biden doing the unthinkable, or was it the unthinkable? Because I'm pretty sure a lot of people thought that he was going to do it. He pardoned Hunter Biden. It has sparked significant controversy, and no doubt about why it should. It is a contentious act, and it is maybe the most controversial presidential pardon in history. And I think it does require careful consideration of some of the past instances. And I want to go through some of them just because I think it's interesting tonight. It's like, hey, let's break down some of the most crazy presidential pardons in history. But I don't necessarily disagree with Hunter Biden getting, pardoned from the whole like gun violation and saying he wasn't on drugs or whatever whenever he did that, although he should have to face some consequences for it. He was maybe facing sentencing that was a little harsh than some, but there are also some comparable or central punishments to people who've committed the same crime. The issue to me wasn't really that. He has all kinds of other criminal activity that he's under the microscope for. And so the current situation that he was about to receive sentencing for was like the minor of all of the issues. He has these big, big gaping problems that he has violated the trust of the American people with by basically, you guys can tell me if you've seen this, but selling influence to high-level government officials around the world, to his dad while his dad was vice president, while his dad was running for office, maybe even while his dad was president. We don't know, because the laptop was actually found before the 2020 election where he became the president, but he did it in the past. So what makes you think he's not going to do it in the future? No doubt about it. Hunter Biden is a slimy, 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 slimy man who has done everything he possibly can to stay in the great favor of his father and become, as a human, very, very lucrative in the process. I don't know. You guys tell me what you're thinking. Put it down in the comments where you're watching from. By the way, I'm coming to you live from Nashville, Tennessee, Music City, the country music capital of the world. And so if you like country music, then basically you'd like my city, and you should like me because, it rubs off on me just by being in the city. Amy Heights, Jennifer Swain, Cat Joy, thank you for those super stickers. Listen, last month, I know I didn't stream as much because we had things come up in the holidays, etc. We had a really bad month overall from our super sticker challenge. Hopefully this month we're on the right step. You guys are helping us, and we're getting started. Today's the first day that we're streaming in the month of December, so thank you guys for your support. Angel Nikki says, love watching you mostly on replay, but you are awesome on YouTube. Thank you, Angel Nikki. Cat Joy says, woohoo, and you've been with us for 18 months. Angel Nikki, you've been with us for 27. Thank you so much for being members. I've also been posting Vlogmas. Hopefully you're enjoying that. They're very hard for me to make. Like today, all I did was sit on my computer and type, work all day. So I'm like, what am I supposed to vlog? Me sitting there, me drinking a cup of coffee? I don't know. It was hard. So there, my life is pretty boring. So I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to have to come up with some stuff to post about on Vlogmas. But I hope you're enjoying it. I posted one of us deep sea fishing for members only. If you haven't had a chance to see that, you can go watch it after we're done with this stream. Also, our Thanksgiving celebration. We found an abandoned island, lots of things on the Vlogmas, just giving you guys an opportunity to get to know me a little bit more. Every December, I start off doing Vlogmas, and then by the end of the month, it just gets too hard. And so I'm praying and hoping I can do it again this time. All right, listen. Let's talk about this. Whoopi Goldberg, of all people, with the dreadlocks and everything, says that what Hunter Biden did is okay because he was addicted to drugs. So if you're on drugs, it's okay to lie on an application for a gun. Which, by the way, how many people know that the Democratic Party are the ones who are like, we need stricter gun control law? And if you guys will remember what happened, Hunter Biden, who's on drugs, fills out an application for a gun, lies about being a drug addict, gets a gun, and then hides it in the bushes next to a school. So I feel like every single, and there's not one Democrat that's came out and said, listen, the whole thing is terrible. We would never stand with somebody who's doing that, because they don't want to speak against the president or the president's son. But these are people who are against these are people who are against a loose gun policy. They advocate for really harsh, strict gun laws. And you and I both know there's nothing strict or harsh about what they're doing, like about hiding a gun in a bush next to a school, when your dad's at the time sitting vice president. And so Whoopi Goldberg, nasty woman. Whoopi Goldberg is a nasty, nasty woman. She says it's okay what he did because he's addicted to drugs. Remarkable. Whoopi said that people need to stop accusing Biden of lying when he said he would not be pardoning his son. There's time and time again. He said, I would not pardon him. I'm going to let justice do what justice does. There's no way I'm going to pardon him. Blah, 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 blah. Pardon him. Not going to pardon him. Not going to pardon him. His Keen Jean Pierre, whatever her name is. Not going to pardon. We can pretend to be surprised that he pardoned him. And be honest, if you were president of the United States and your kid that you love dearly, your only living son, was facing some very difficult legal challenges, and just by the signature of your hand, you can pardon, would you do it? Probably. He'd probably do it. He'd probably be like, okay, I'm not going to run for president again anyways. He signed the paper. Like, honestly. Now, Amy Heights was telling me that Hunter was actually, I don't know how she knows. Apparently she has her ear inside of the White House. But she said that during Thanksgiving, Hunter threatened Joe that he would let the cat out of the bag on a whole host of other issues if they weren't in a situation where he was pardoned. You tell me what you think about that. I don't know if it's true or not. By the way, guys, we survive off of your support. PayPal, Cash App, Venmo information's down there on the bottom of the screen. You can also support through Super Sticker or Super Chat. We're going to go after 12 as our goal on the Super Chat train today. Let's take a look at this little scene from ABC. By the way, I can't wait till the day when The View gets canceled because it's so stupid.
I respect it as a parent. I understand why he would do it, but I wonder to understand why lie about it for so long.
I'd stop calling it a lie.
Okay, why repeatedly say you're not going to and you do? And secondarily, for the part of this country, half of it that doesn't support Biden, doesn't know him personally, doesn't get to have phone calls, and they're just looking at a system that seems like it only benefits the people who are in power.
I'm going to say,
what precedent does that set?
Well, here's what it says. It's a precedent for all of us to open our eyes because we've elected someone who is in a similar situation, who didn't have a drug problem, who knew what he was doing, who clearly stood and said, I can do this. And he did it. So I think for many, many reasons, this is very different than any other situation that we have ever dealt with.
Do you guys agree with Whoopi, or do you think she's lost her M-I-N-D, her mind? Did he deserve a pardon? Tell me this in the chat. Did Hunter Biden deserve a pardon? Yes or no? Clearly no. The answer is no. And it's not just that he received a pardon. It's that he received a pardon for any crime he would ever commit ever in the history of ever, when he has literally piles and piles and 600 pages of documentation of crimes that he committed after they confiscated his laptop. Now, if you're a parent and you're the president, you got to be honest. There's a chance that you would actually pardon your son. Now, here's the thing that's stupid. And I tweeted this, and I said, so what changed? By the way, if you're not following me over on X, give me a follow. Go give me a follow on X right this second. It is my username is TylerFeller22, but KJP or whatever her name is, she Here's 45 seconds of her saying that Joe Biden would never pardon Hunter.
President pardon or commute his son if he's convicted?
So I've answered this question before. It was asked of me not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I was very clear and I said no.
Okay. We go back to the first question of the briefing. I know you said not a lot's changed since yesterday and that it's a personal matter, but from a presidential perspective, is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Again, you've also said several.
Is there any, he said the word any, is there any chance in the history of ever any possibility that the president would pardon his son? Whether, honestly, I hate to make fun of her, and I'm not making fun of her. It's just an observation. You could take it the wrong way or not. It's up to you. I'm not making fun of her when I say this. Her hair looks like a mop. Listen, I hate to say it. I hate to be the one to say it. I hate 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 to say it. Her hair looks like a mop. It does. It looks like it's been dipped in bleach, swung around in the dirt, mopped up the floor. I hate to say it. I hate to say it. I hate to say it. Cat Joy, thank you so much for that amazing super sticker. 1 down, 11 to go. She's got a mop as a head. She does. Look at those curls. They literally look like the strings on a mop bucket. I hate to say it. I do not like being the one to point out the obvious. I do not like being the one to point it out. But the shoe fits. If it's true, it's true. And she's sitting here lying to us. Which is worse, her lies or her hair? Put it in the comments.
The president would not pardon or commute the sentence for his son, Hunter. I just want to make sure that that is not going to change over the next 6 months. The president's saying he would not.
It's still a no. It's still a no.
It will always be a no.
It's still a no. It will be a no. It is a no, and I don't have anything else to add. Will he pardon his son? No.
Second one, would the president pardon or commute his son if he's convicted?
So I've answered this question before. It was asked of me not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I was very clear and I said no.
Okay. We go back to the first question of the briefing.
She basically is saying, so I'm looking at you in the face and I'm admitting that I lie. I mean, that's the way she's basically saying it. She's like, yes, my hair is a mop. Yes, I could be a Muppet. She might be saying, yeah, I might try out for the Muppets when Biden's out of office. She might have her own show on PBS with Elmo. I don't know. But what she's doing is she's looking at us in the eye and lying. Now, Charlie Kirk says this is one of the most devastating and enjoyable clips on the internet. CNN forces Representative Dan Goldman to watch the video of himself saying confidently that Joe Biden would never pardon Hunter. It's getting spicy on this show today.
In July of 2023, just after that plea deal fell through, this is what you said. I want to watch.
Do you think a pardon for his son would be a mistake?
Yes, and I don't think there's any chance that President Biden is going to do that, unlike his predecessor, who pardoned all of his friends and anyone who had any access to him. And I think you see that in this case, where he kept on, and Merrick Garland kept on. A Trump...
Look, this guy right here says there's no way ever President Biden would ever pardon Hunter. And they're literally making him watch himself say that this would never happen.
Appointed U.S. attorney to investigate the president's son. If there is not an indication of the independence of the Department of Justice beyond that, I don't know what we could look for.
What does that feel like, watching yourself back then, reassuring people that Biden was not going to issue a pardon for his son?
Yeah, and I think that if that plea agreement and that plea deal had gone through, there would be no pardon. That was a satisfactory outcome.
It already fallen
that
through.
Only was.
Yeah, when you had done the other interview, it had already fallen. So now this guy over there with the big old Brian Koberger looking eyes on the right side of the screen is sitting there making up lies himself. Listen, if there's anything that we can say at the end of this election cycle, all of the little hunches along the way that we thought that the government was lying to us, it turns out to be true. This man is a representative who's now trying to spin the wheel of lies like, well, if the plea deal had gone through, it would have never happened. And CNN, of all people, the place that stands for Clinton News Network, they hate Donald Trump. They hate him since day one. They're saying to this guy, you're lying. You're a representative of the people of the United States. You serve them in Washington, D.C. You're supposed to be upholding and making laws that make society a better place, and you're lying to people. Listen, I am so sick and tired of being lied to by people that are supposed to have our best interest at hand. And usually the reason that they're lying is because it best serves their interests and their purposes. They're lying about all this stuff with Joe Biden. They lied to us about COVID. They said that there were no such thing as a negative side effects from the vaccine. Well, there's people dying suddenly all across the place, and without a shadow of a doubt, there's detrimental consequences, especially for young, active, healthy people that have taken the COVID vaccine. Hate to say it, you guys don't like me saying it, but it is 100% and absolutely the truth. There's negative consequences in people's health, in particular young, active, healthy people that have taken the COVID vaccine. Tell me why in Canada, the average lifespan of a human being has went down 2 years since COVID. It's not because of COVID. It's because of a shot that the government mandated that they infest into their bodies. And the very same things happening in the United States of America. They told us that it was a conspiracy theory whenever we tried to say that this was a man-made weapon of biomass destruction formulated in a lab in Wuhan, China. And Donald Trump was laughed this way, that way, all the way to Timbuktu by calling it the China virus. Well, today Congress released a report saying, as a matter of fact, this was manufactured by humans in a lab in Wuhan, China. In other words, all of the suspicions and theories that people had along the way that there were people in a lab dreaming up a way to release something detrimental to society, it happened. And so when we had a little hunch that something was off and that this wasn't some sort of like sporadic thing that just naturally happened in the human race, we were told that we were lying. And now we find out that actually the government was lying to us the entire time. We were laughed off the face of the planet that we were told that ivermectin, which by the way has a Nobel Prize for its effectiveness as a medicine in fighting, especially in third world countries, diseases that they never thought they could get their handle on. We were told that if you took it, you're taking horse medicine. And now we're told it's actually an approved medicine to help people that are dealing with COVID. And not only that, there are certain types of cancer that people have that if they take ivermectin, that it actually is eliminating that cancer. So you guys tell me what you're thinking. I'm just saying, I'm sick and tired of the government having lied to us. I mean, the select subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic actually released a ton of information. I'm going to put it on the screen just so you guys can see what I'm talking about. There's a full PDF of the entire thing if you wanted to go look at it. And I actually would suggest for some of you that are interested in those kinds of things that you can. This is a 2-year investigation. They found out that the National Institute of Health funded gain of function research at the Wuhan lab. The Constitution can't be suspended in a time of crisis. And in particular states, they were suspending the Constitution. They were superseding things that they felt like for the sake of public humanity needed to be done. But actually, the whole thing pointed back to their ability, in particular, the liberals and the Democratic Party wanting to gain control over people. Listen, God created this nation, the United States of America, to have a providential history that we would be the freest and most dedicated nation to him, that we would be a beacon of hope, not necessarily of democracy around the world, but of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And had it not been for the United States of America in the past 250 years, there wouldn't be people groups and nations and tribes and tongues that have ever heard the name of Jesus be preached. And so we know without a shadow of a doubt that there's a massive attack from the enemy to gain control over what God has established. Everything that I see happening, just from me speaking as a pastor from a pastoral perspective, is the enemy trying to encroach on territory that Christians have taken ground from in the United States of America. And the problem is that we've gone weak, we've gone passive, and we're never supposed to be passive with our faith. God never created Christians to be passive or weak-minded or weak-acting. The Bible says the righteous take it by force. In other words, there's supposed to be a gentle and kind, but yet aggressive approach to make sure everything that we do is making heaven a bigger place. Not that we would seek dominion over any sphere of society, but that we would pray to have opportunities to influence it. And so what I see happening, especially from a party that has policies that are absolute in opposition to what the Bible teaches, they hold to a very materialistic, agnostic, naturalistic worldview instead of a biblical worldview. They think the things that are evil are good, and the things that are good are evil. And they don't like what the Bible teaches. They do not like what the Bible teaches. And so praise God that today there was a release from Congress saying, listen, COVID that was emerging from a lab leak is not a conspiracy theory, that this was a disease that was locked inside of a laboratory that was funded by the United States of America in partnership with China. And it was released out to citizens, and people actually face detrimental consequences of it. EcoHealth and Dr. Peter Daszak says that we should never again receive taxpayer funds to fund medical research in this way. Public health officials, would you guys agree with this, have lost the faith of the people? You guys know full good and well that Dr. Fauci made up the whole wear a mask thing. Listen, if you wore one of those masks, even the ones that they gave you to wear, like the little blue on one side, white on the other side mask that hurt your ears when you wear them, you could barely breathe, but still you could like spit through it. You knew that it wasn't holding any disease. You know how many airplane flights I took during COVID? They're like, they would literally kick you off the plane if you didn't have a mask covering your nostrils. And then like 10 minutes later, they go serve food and beverages to everybody on the plane, and they all take it off and drink and eat. How does that make any sense? The only mask that was doing anything was the N95 mask, and there was a shortage of them. And Dr. Fauci literally, he's on record saying he made up the whole thing to try to make American people feel safe if they would do it. And I think that's even an excuse to cover up his real reason, which was he was trying to find other ways that he could actually control the American people. The whole like distance 6 feet from each other is one of the stupidest requirements that I've ever heard. Like, you mean if I stay 6 feet away from you, there's no way anybody in the whole entire store is going to get COVID? And did any of you go to a store during COVID and you had to stand outside of the store and wait until like somebody left so you can go in? How ridiculous was that? And so they said that the prescription was actually worse than the disease. In other words, all of the lockdowns that they created forced more horrific consequences than what would have happened if society just didn't shut down at all. And in fact, in a lot of the communities, such as the Amish community where they didn't shut down, the percentage of death that existed was significantly lower than any place else, because there were some deaths, and it was typically with people who had comorbidities, were obese and suffered from asthma, or were elderly, or all of the above. But after sort of the initial comorbidity fatalities happened, there was herd immunity, and they were tough as nails after that. I guarantee you there's not people there that are having to deal with the same levels of long COVID and other issues that are going on in our society. I'm still not over from COVID, and here we are. It's been 4 years since COVID and 3 years since I had COVID in a significant way, and I still have days where I can't function properly because of the side effects of this man-made virus funded by the United States government in partnership with the dictatorship in China in a Wuhan lab that they reached out and released to the people. And then they tried to lock down society, and what they were doing was really breeding a spirit of fear into people. They're trying to shut down churches and arresting people that continue to have services. And Tell me, when you think about this, was this ever for a millisecond? Was this ever for a millisecond something that you thought should have shut down society? And I get that people were getting sick, but come on. Most of the time when people had COVID, most of the time, and I'm a unique example, and I know several others that are unique examples, but the majority of people that I know that had COVID had almost no symptoms at all. Or if they did, they were very minor symptoms and they were back to their normal lives pretty quickly. Maybe they lost their taste and smell for a couple days. Maybe they had trouble breathing. Maybe they were sick for a couple days, but then they were back to normal. It was like they had the flu or something like that, and their body learned how to fight it and they were strong. So, by the way, Cat Joy, Jennifer Swain, Amy Heights, Cat Joy, Linda Carlino, and Cat Joy, thank you guys for rocking and rolling our super sticker train today. It's all hands on deck, guys. It's going to take every single one of us to keep pressing forward to reach our goals. I'm totally dependent on people like you to come alongside and help us in order for us to be successful. And so if I don't have your support, then I'm not in a situation where I'm going to actually be able to continue doing what we do. And so every single time you guys send a super sticker or super chat, it is so helpful. I kind of wanted to catch Sean Spicer's view on this whole thing. It looks like he has, what doctor is that? Some kind of doctor on his show, and they're talking about Hunter Biden being pardoned. Let's just take a second and see what he says.
Democrats, now they're blaming us, by the way. Republicans are to blame for all of this, for Biden lying. Oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. The panel is going to have a field day with all this. All right, I want to get to the panel, and then I want to get to Dr. Drew to talk about the latest with the Make America Healthy agenda. Before I do that, I tell you guys all the time, if you are someone that has trouble sleeping, falling asleep, staying a contributor to The Spectator. All right, guys, good to see you all. What a way to start the week. This is not what I had on my bingo card for Sunday night, getting a pardon. Seth, I want to start with you. I mean, there's so many things, and I want to break it all down that jump out on this pardon. I almost feel like Biden he was like, Trump's getting all the attention. I got to do something. But the first thing that I think I want to just talk about is, you know, Biden sort of going after saying my son was prosecuted and it was like nothing else. And I'm like, wait a second. You guys in the.
If your dad was suffering from like dementia, let's just say, this is a hypothetical situation. If your dad was suffering from, let's say he was suffering from dementia and he happened to be president of the United States, and you happen to have, I don't know, an entire big long rap sheet of criminal activity that you're about to be held responsible for, and you're sitting across the table from him at Thanksgiving, and your attorney's there because you brought him on purpose to try to have, you know, an intentional family meeting, would you try to get your father, who's already been elder abused to the max by making him be president for 4 years and stand on a debate stage, even though he had mashed potatoes for a brain, and try to complete a couple of sentences live on national television to the embarrassment of our entire nation? Would you, I'm just saying this is all hypothetical, would you force that man to also pardon you if you were a criminal? Let me know, put it in the comment section. I'm just saying, I don't blame them for doing what they're doing. I think it's wrong ethically. I think it's wrong moralistically. But if you're a criminal, you're probably going to get beat up in jail because everybody hates the privilege that you got to live under, that on the backs of the American people who are fine, tax-paying people. Just let me know. Becky, Cat Joy, thank you guys so much for your tremendous support. Rocking and rolling, guys. 2 away from our goal tonight.
The Democratic Party have 2 principal things that you pretty much talk about all the time, aside from abortion, actually. One is gun control. We need to have tougher background checks. And 2 is the rich paying their taxes. Those are the 2 things that Hunter Biden got caught for. He had a sweetheart deal that he turned down. If he had just gone along with the sweetheart deal, it would have been great. And yet, how do Democrats have any ability to talk about gun control and background checks going forward when here's an example of a prominent Democrat lying on a background check, getting away with it, and the Dems are silent on it?
Yeah, I got to tell you, Sean, I feel like...
Is that not what I said at the beginning of our stream?
You know how you used to have those bouncy balls when you were a kid and you throw them against the wall and they kind of, bounce all around. You couldn't really track them. That's my brain this morning. And it's been that since I heard this news. And I'll say that for a multitude of reasons. One, I think about this sometimes as a dad, right? And I'm going, okay, this is my one chance. I may not have many years left. I don't want to die with my kid in prison. Like, this is my chance. I'm going to take it. That's part one. That's the sensitive side of Seth. He doesn't show up very often, but he's here this morning momentarily. The other piece of this is how many people right now are in prison for tax evasion. That's the one that really gets me. And this is the president that wanted to expand the IRS, and his entire Democratic Party was out there talking about paying their fair share when his own son didn't pay his fair share of his taxes and got convicted on it. The gun thing is a little bit of a different thing. I won't get into all of that one, but again, you bring up some great points. But here's where I think there was a missed opportunity. When a couple weeks ago, when President Trump and President Biden were in the White House, the Oval Office, broing it out, why not a great chance to sit down and say, all right, let's put this aside. Here's the deal. Biden, you're going to pardon me, and I'm going to pardon Hunter, and we're going to say we're done with this whole going after family members. And what a unifying thing that could have been. I get it might have been politically, rough on the fringes, but I think most of America would have gone, all right, we are going to get along and move on.
Okay, this isn't where I was going. Hilton and Grace. No. But somebody asked me that yesterday. They said, do you think that Biden pardons Trump now because it'll look good? I mean, so let's just hypothetically play that out for a second. First Hilton and then you, Grace. Like, take Seth's principle. Just stick to this for just a second because we've got a lot to dive into. If there was a deal conjured up that said Biden pardons Trump, Trump pardons Hunter, or Biden does everything, do you think that would have gone over okay, Hilton?
I just don't see Biden ever doing that. And if he was going to, I think he would have maybe paired it with Hunter. So maybe it didn't look so, so bipartisan or partisan in that way. I don't know. I just don't see him pardoning Trump. I think he has too much animosity towards Trump.
There's no way on God's green acres that he would ever pardon Trump. There's no way. And besides that, Donald Trump, in my opinion, wouldn't even accept a pardon from Joe Biden because I think he feels like he's in a situation where he isn't guilty to begin with. I think he's like, let's play it out. What did I do wrong? Everybody knows that there was a lawfare and political persecution brought against Donald Trump that was unfair. Everybody, I mean, like even Democrats the whole time, except for like the crazy ones on the far, far, far left, have came out and said, listen, even Bill Maher, the guy who has Trump derangement syndrome, came out very clearly and said that the charges against Trump were trumped up and shouldn't have ever been brought. It creates the wrong precedents in our society. Listen, I don't live in the United States of America and am proud of it because it's a banana republic. I live in the United States of America and am proud to call this nation my home because we actually have a code of justice and law and order that we abide by and mutually agree to as a society to believe and hope for the best possible future for us and our generations to come, and believe in passing on a legacy that together is doing what we cannot do alone. And so, by turning us into Venezuela or, what feels like Haiti or, one of these nations that is a failed government state that's basically ran by propped up bureaucrats that have lined their pockets with corporations and organizations that are living on the backs of government tax deals as a supply chain to their economic system. We just can't have that. It's part of the reason why the industrial war complex needs to come to an end. It's part of the reason why Donald Trump nominated Tulsi Gabbard to the position that he did as the director of national intelligence in this upcoming term, because there has to be a change. Listen, friends, there has to be a change in our culture. Everybody knows we're more divided than ever. Everybody knows that We're in a situation where the voices that we used to trust, that were on TV, that we got our news and information from, are losing power, and they were never there because they actually genuinely cared about bringing you the news. They were there because they got paid millions of dollars every single day to sit behind a camera and bring you the news. And the fact that the viewership and the ad dollars and the things that were attached to their success are slowly dripping away, it means that they're very willingly able to sacrifice the things that make this nation great so that in their lifetime they can hold on to their power. Listen, we can't be so narrow-minded that we're just focused on the here and now. And we certainly can't be so narcissistic that the very thing that we're doing is detrimental to the society as a whole, but it builds us up. And that's what's happening. You have pundits that are on legacy and dominant media that survive off of American eyeballs watching their programs. And the fact that in this past election, it was more podcasts and news cycles that actually helped sway the election means that the power and the authority of voices that used to bring us news that we felt like we can trust just doesn't exist anymore. And it's not even the fact that it's more convenient to flip on your phone or computer and watch something on YouTube to get your sources of information. It's the fact that you know that they're not giving you free, fair, and balanced information anymore. You know that you were told lies about COVID. You know that you were told lies about January 6th. You know that you were told lies about Donald Trump and the person that he is. You know that you were told lies in the opposite direction, saying that Hunter Biden, as an example's laptop, was a fake laptop that was Russian disinformation attempt, and nothing on it was accurate or true. And that turned out to be totally fake news. And they didn't release that information until after the 2020 election. And it actually came out because Elon Musk was a brave man willing to spend $44 billion of his own dollars for a company that's maybe worth $10 billion just to fight for, at the end of the day, the value and virtue of free speech. And so what's happening is, because there's a degradation of these institutions that for the past 75 years have helped uphold the wing of what we call democracy, and it's failing and flailing, and all of those people are clinging to it, we're in a really serious battle. And if we're not careful, those people, for the very sake of building who they are up as people and not building who we are up collectively as a nation, are in a position, and I think you know this deep in your heart, are in a position that's going to lead to something that's much more deeper and consequential for our society. And so we have to stand firm, and we have to believe in what we believe in, and we have to continue to speak out against injustices when we see them happen. And I think this situation with Hunter Biden is the latest example of a government overreach in a situation where there's been mass disinformation, where we feel lied to and betrayed. And if nothing else, at the end of the day, this is just another bucket in the reason why American people voted for Donald Trump to be president. Do you know that there wasn't one single county in 2024 that Kamala Harris flipped from Donald Trump into her favor? Now, there's a couple of reasons that could be. Donald Trump was obviously the better candidate by far. By and large, he was the better candidate. He won the popular vote. He won the Electoral College in what would be known just in modern day society as a landslide, because he did win every single swing state that existed. But beyond that, if you think really deeply about what happened, the media, even just days before the election, tried to scare us all by saying, oh my gosh, Kamala Harris has a late surge. She's up 10 points in Iowa, which was a state, by the way, that Donald Trump went on to win by 8 or 9 points. It was an attempt to influence the election in the opposite direction of the way that the American people actually felt. Now, I remember in 2020, when that election happened, and there was nothing, it felt like to me, that was free or fair about that. How can a guy who could only draw 100 people to his rallies, that has mashed potatoes for a brain, can't complete a full sentence, is 89 years old? Whenever he walks, he looks like, he's part of the Addams family, but he's laying, in a casket. That's just my opinion. He felt like he was stiff when he walked. It felt like he was actually being controlled by a remote control or something half of the time. How can a man like that win more votes in American history than any other person that ran for president ever? It just doesn't add up. It just doesn't make sense. And so either there was something really unfair that happened in the 2020 election, or the entire nation was just under, because of COVID, some kind of mind virus that was causing them not to think at all. Now, I hope and pray that if there was any illegitimacy in 2020 in that election that it comes out. But even today, I was going and looking at the county by county comparison from 2020 to 2026. You just know how statistically impossible that would be. It's only happened one other time in the history of America. And the entire history of our beautiful nation, the United States of America, it's only happened one other time. And it was in 1932 with Herbert Hoover, where the person running for office had a higher percentage in the second election than he did in the prior election. You know how just statistically impossible that is, even in modern society, to say that there's not one county in America that Kamala Harris performed better in than Joe Biden. There's just not one county in America. Does that even seem possible to you? That there's not one county in the beautiful United States of America? The only way that that's possible is if there was nothing free or fair about the previous election. I hate to say it. I'm not one that's been hopping on that. But if you look at the counties in red, the counties that are in red are counties that Donald Trump won in 2020, and he held them in 2024. You're looking at the counties in blue. These are counties that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris both won. You're looking at counties in purple on the map, for example, in South Texas. These are counties that Joe Biden won, that now Donald Trump won. And if you look, we're supposed to be trying to find yellow counties, and these would be counties that Trump won in 2020, but then Kamala Harris won in 2024. And just looking at the beautiful United States of America, I mean, I'm looking at, from sea to shining sea, from the mountains to the valleys. There's not one single county that flipped from Trump to Harris in 2024. And if you were watching the news and the legacy media, if you were paying attention to Oprah Winfrey, getting paid $2.5 million or whatever it was to go on stages and say, this could very well be the last election any of you could ever vote in. So get out and vote. Like basically trying to scare the American people. Like, if you don't get out and vote for Kamala Harris, your entire right to ever vote is going to be dismantled. Like, it's like so stupid to scare American people like that. He's Hitler. Look at them. He held a rally at the Madison Square Garden. Well, one time there was a Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden. You want to know how much other crap went on at Madison Square Garden in the history of that facility? I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous, the kind of stunts that was being pulled. And it's like, I think, I hope, I pray the American people are actually wising up to it, are actually tired of it, are actually sick of it. And so what I hope and what I pray happens is that every single outside influence of a DEI woke mind virus that's been happening in legacy dominant cable media, any kind of media as an example, that it gets dismantled. And I pray and I hope that there's all of these people who actually, with pure hearts that have been fighting on the wrong side of this argument, would have their mind and eyes and ears open to the truth of what's actually going on. Because I think for people like me and maybe others that are, kind of in tune with the Spirit of God, that you felt it in your heart that something was just incredibly off in 2020, in the past 4 years. You felt it in your heart that there was just something incredibly off. That Donald Trump was actually the person that was like, brave enough to actually get in the way of the control and authority and power that these people felt like they possessed and could hold on to forever. And I'm not meaning to go on like this, the biggest rant in, Tyler Filler YouTube history tonight about this stuff, but these are deep matters of the heart that are things that I think about that I haven't really had an opportunity to articulate and share with you, the amazing people of this channel, but it actually matters and makes a difference. There has to be people that with pure eyes and clean hands and, pure hearts, with the discernment of God, with common sense, can actually say, no, there was something weird that happened. There was something super weird that happened, and we're not going to stand for it anymore. We're going to listen. We are going to fight. We are going to fight for the right to actually have free and fair elections in the future. We're going to fight for the right for the government not to control information that's being handed down to us, but instead we're going to be told the truth from this point forward. And if there's anything shady that happened with the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, that information needs to be released. And all of the people that are going crazy, that are actually, in my opinion, manifesting demons, and I hate to say it that way and be so blunt about it, but I do think that there's a lot of people that are a part of the woke mind virus sort of wing of the Democratic Party that are under some kind of like, demonic possession, because the way that they think is just so out of line with what reality is. And the problem is that they're the squeakiest wheels. How many of you just get anxiety when you start to scroll through social media or whatever, because all you actually see is negative and detrimental news about the way in which you view the world? I mean, one of the things that happens when you have I'm talking like 90% of what they say about Kamala Harris in this past election was positive, and 90% about what they say Donald Trump was negative. And that's just in general across every single platform combined. 90% about what they said about Kamala Harris was positive, and 90%, it's just a rough average. It was more like 87% and 89% or something like that. It's just rounding. 90% of the things that was stated about Donald Trump in the most previous election, 90% of it was negative that you saw and heard about him on the news. And 90% about what you heard and saw about Kamala Harris on the news was actually positive. So it made you feel like the way in which you view the world was so far in the minority. It made you feel like when that woman was giving that poll result out of the state of Iowa just days before the election, that Kamala Harris was ahead by 10 points. Maybe you just you couldn't say it out loud because you're like, nah, there's no way. But maybe there's a place in your heart that just, the day before the election, the day of the election, you're like, maybe there is something going on. Maybe Donald Trump, maybe I am in the minority. Maybe Donald Trump is going to lose this election. Maybe the majority of Americans actually are in favor of Kamala Harris, and maybe they do want people to come in and steal the guns out of your house if you believe in the Second Amendment, or, maybe they do want to grant citizenship to every single illegal immigrant that snuck their way across the border, even if they're potentially, a criminal or part of a gang, or left their nation because they have, a rap sheet which includes murder. I'm just saying, like, maybe some of you may have been in a position where you were actually questioning some of these things. Maybe we're in a place in a society where all that stuff is true. And then election day happens and you're like, I think I need to see a therapist, because I feel like I've just been gaslit for the past couple of years. And it's just a sad reality of what we're facing. I mean, it's just, there's no other way to say it. It's just became like basically the saddest reality of what's possible. And one of the people that I actually felt like was the best press secretary of all time was Kayleigh McEnany. You can agree or disagree. I thought she was incredible. If she wasn't a young mother, I bet she would take a position again inside of Donald Trump's cabinet, because she served him so incredibly well. I don't think she necessarily enjoys being like the news pundit at Fox News is her job. Maybe she does, but I've always kind of felt like, well, she's doing it because it's a stable schedule for her as a mother, and she gets to, be involved in the life of her kids. And, with kids, she's not going to be able to gallivant around the whole entire world with Donald Trump. And, you're basically working 20 hours a day. You eat, sleep, live, and breathe whatever it is the president's doing, and you're off on Air Force One to another nation to, meet with Kim Jong-un or whatever it is that a press secretary needs to do when Donald Trump's in office. I value what she says. And I'll be honest, like, I do feel like, Fox News isn't my favorite place to receive news coverage, because I do feel, like they're extremely one-sided, very similar to CNN, but just on the opposite spectrum, where it's like, what they say is going to reflect, more of a conservative approach. But that being said, Kayleigh McEnany's on there, and so when she talks, because I know she has a personal and deep bond with Donald Trump, I enjoy listening to what she says. And I do from time to time watch Fox News because, it is a perspective that aligns more with mine than any other cable or dominant or legacy news that's kind of in the mainstream of things. I wish that there was a better option. I like News Nation in the sense that I feel like they try to give a balanced approach. And it's part of the reason why I like that platform two-way that we talk about sometimes.
Every parent understanding a father wanting to pardon a son. I understand that. I don't understand the lying. I don't understand how the Merrick Garland DOJ raids Melania's closet and then Biden's White House pardons his son. There seems to be a huge disparity there. I think when you look back on this, when history looks back on this, you're going to see a legacy of injustice. It was not just the raid on Mar-a-Lago that happened under Garland, the prosecutions of Donald Trump. It was also the radical Catholic memo from the FBI. It was Paulette Harlow, 76-year-old. Look, I can't get her face out of my mind. She's sitting in a jail right now, 2-year sentence for being in front of an abortion clinic, standing there peacefully. Her husband's devastated, thinks she's going to die in jail, but Hunter Biden gets a pardon. A lot of people don't understand the disparity, and that legacy of injustice is going to sear into the minds of people, not just the feelings of a father to a son, which every parent can understand.
President Trump sort of knew this was coming, right? Bill Malugin asked him about this. Watch here.
You've talked about wanting to unify the country if you're elected. If you are president again, in the name of unity, would you consider pardoning Hunter Biden?
Well, I wouldn't do anything that would be overt in terms of Hunter. It's a sad situation. And I'll bet you the father probably pardons him. Let's see what happens. But he's a bad boy.
So he anticipated it would happen.
But he's a bad boy. How funny is that? Donald J. Trump. How many people watching you love Donald J. Trump? Just let me know in the comment section. If you're watching, you're like, yeah, you love Donald J. Trump. He's a bad boy. So funny.
Happen. But Andy, what about the fact that Biden just insisted, and through his spokesperson insisted, that no one was above the law? They said over and over again. And frankly, unfortunately for them, I don't think anybody actually believed them anyway.
Yeah, well, this goes to what Kayleigh was talking about. I think I certainly as a father could understand that you would, if you had the power to spare your son imprisonment, if were my sons, I would have spared them prosecution in the first place, which he could have done. But I think that goes to the mendacious political calculations that went into this. As Kayleigh said, anybody could have understood if Biden had just looked America in the eye and said, look, this is my son. I know it's abusive, but I'm going to pardon him. Mm-hmm. They would have understood that a lot better than the series of lies. But the series of lies were driven by the election calendar. They wouldn't do the pardon prior to the election because they realized that the electorate would have went nuts over it. So they lied about it again and again. I think you're right that nobody really believed them. Certainly nobody who looked at the choices that Hunter and his lawyers made during these cases. They had to know they were getting a pardon. I don't think anybody
Andy,
believed it.
Yeah. If you look at the president's statement, he says two things. He says no one is brought to trial for filling out a gun form improperly. I'm paraphrasing the words there. He's also making the case that if you pay back taxes, there's no penalty. The penalty for prison comes off of that. Are those two statements true?
So if I rob a bank, but I bring the money back, that's okay now? You know, I mean, it's idiotic. As far as the gun case is concerned, that was not what they call a lie and try case where you fill out the form, but you don't get the gun because they find out that there's a problem. He actually got the gun. Those cases get brought all the time. And as for a tax violation, it's just like the bank robbery. It's a little bit of a drastic example, but I think it makes the point. Paying back the money that you owe doesn't mean that you didn't commit the crime. It's not a defense. So it's just, those are silly arguments. Mm-hmm. And in point of fact, he got cut break after break because he was Hunter Biden, because he was the president's son. This idea that he was singled out for that reason, They actually tried to make the case against him go away, which is a break that no American would get.
We were going to try to get to Kash Patel and that FBI nomination, but we're going to get to that within the show. But I do want to ask you, Kaylee, about this. If you think about the new to Trump voters over this past month, right? One of the things that they were frustrated with is that they felt that the leaders were not in touch with them, that they didn't care about things for them. We're going to talk to somebody later who did hard time for the very same thing that Hunter is accused of doing, was accused of doing and convicted of doing, although I guess now he's not a convicted felon because it's like these things never happen. I mean, that feeling of the elites being better than the people, that carries through with this pardon.
Absolutely. I mean, the pro-life activists I mentioned, some of whom are in jail, some of whom were acquitted by a jury like Mark Houck, there's a huge disparity. Those individuals you speak of, when they read this and see selective and unfairly prosecuted, no, that was Trump with the New York case. New York Times reviewed every case they could find and could not find a case where a federal election was brought under New York state election law. That language applied to Trump. Congress instigated them, miscarriage of justice singled out. I just remind everyone, August 11th, 2023, it was Merrick Garland that appointed special prosecutor David Weiss. So this is such a selective prosecution. It was your DOJ that appointed the special counsel.
Thanks to both of you. Andy McCarthy, thank you.
We're going to pray. It's also your last opportunity today to support this wonderful stream. If you want to send another super sticker or super chat, it is your last chance. But let's pray for our nation. We're in a season of transition. Let's make it through this inauguration, and let's just believe and hope that in the course of the coming days that Donald J. Trump's going to be in a situation where he's able to move forward with an aggressive agenda, put America back on its feet. I feel like we've had the wind knocked out of us, but you're seeing it little by little, us getting our bearings again. Let's continue to pray. So, Lord, we love you. And God, we are so grateful for the incredible privilege of what it means to be on this side of life, where we have computers and phones and connectivity and food and water and heat. Lord, we consider that an incredible privilege. We don't take it for granted. Your word actually says that every good gift that we have comes from you. And so we thank you, Father Jesus, for that amazing gift that you've given us. And Lord, thank you for the United States of America, a nation that you founded with a providential history to bring hope to the world. And Lord, I pray that that hope continues to go out, that people would be strengthened in their calling, that they would have a fight in them to stand up for the cause of Christ, that there would not be any more passivity in their faith, but instead they would be bold, aggressive Christians standing up for the things of the Lord. And I bless every person in the chat, that they would be filled with the peace of God, that they would be filled with the hope of God, that they would be strengthened in their own walk with you, Lord. Speak healing in their bodies too, in Jesus' precious name. Amen, amen, amen. Thank you guys for being on the stream. We'll be back again very, very, very soon.